Yeah, Amen. There was definitely some urgency here coming through the day, and the Mets felt like, look, they love Pete Alonso, they want Pete Alonso, but at a certain point, there has to be a resolution here. So I did get the sense that they were going to push for that and push for it in a way that wasn't adversarial because they really love Pete Alonso as a person, as a player. They've wanted him back all along, but as we've seen clearly, and as we see by the terms of this deal, it wasn't at a long-term agreement that they wanted him. They wanted him at where they felt that the market had valued him. So they made what they felt was a very fair, above-market offer for next year at $30 million. Alonso gets that opt-out for obviously the next season after that. So they were feeling like they didn't look, the Mets didn't put any deadlines on it. They didn't say we're going to pull this offer at X time if you don't accept it. But they wanted a resolution one way or the other. And I'm sure Pete Alonso did too. I haven't spoken with Pete yet since this broke, but everybody here as human beings wants to know what's going to happen. Pete, I'm sure, wanted to know where he was going to play, and the Mets wanted to know what their roster was going to look like. So there was that sense of urgency, as you said, Amen, coming through this day and this evening, and it didn't surprise me at all, therefore, when the agreement was reached here later in the evening. Yeah, he was on the 10-yard line, excuse me, with Toronto. It was a serious situation there where there was real mutual interest, and it just didn't work out. I'll be interested to hear what Alonso has to say about that. Was it that he really wanted to be a Met? Were there other reasons? I don't want to speculate without him speaking. But yeah, there were a lot of options that he had. Look, Pete Alonso has elite power, and there were teams that certainly would have been happy to have him, including the Mets, where he obviously ended up. But this was a situation where it seems as if team and player wanted the same resolution, and the issue, Amen, was just how many years and how much money. And the Mets got to a place where they were comfortable with the years, and Alonso got to a place with the money on next year where presumably he's comfortable. But again, I don't want to speak for him. Well, that was just Steve Cohen being really accurate and honest, honestly. It was him saying, look, we don't want to push the payroll this far. We'll never say no. They were leaving enough room where you could kind of make an Alonso deal work if they were willing to stretch. And the payroll now is going to be at a place that they didn't plan for, that they aren't necessarily comfortable with as a number, but what they are comfortable with is Pete Alonso's on our team, and now we're better. So that's where the FanFest comments came from, is an honest assessment of where the roster and the payroll are. But you never say never because he's Pete Alonso. They like him. Mets fans like him. So, see what you can work out, which is what they've done. Yeah, they just made it very clear that they weren't going to give Alonso more than a few years. They were willing to give him 3. We ended up here looking at a 2-year deal. But yeah, they held firm on that line. And the way that Scott Boras found success was the dollar figure. So the hope here, if you're the Mets, is that you have a player who's going to be happy enough with the salary where he's going to report to camp and not feel like this didn't go his way, or that he lost the negotiation, or that his agent did. There's enough here, the Mets hope, that both team and player, and of course agent as well, can feel like, all right, we got something we were looking for. But yeah, Stearns was never going to give Pete Alonso many years into his 30s. And, that was clear. This is a moment in which, among many other things that happened here, Eamon, the Mets proved that David Stearns is in control, and that Steve Cohen was not just going to say, all right, David, give him 5, 6, 7 years. That's what he wants. And that's not what happened. They gave him the money, but not the years. Well, I think the fans are going to be very excited here. And that home run that you mentioned, Eamon, is a big part of it. If he hadn't hit that home run, it's probably a different feeling from the fan base about Alonso because of the year that he had and the postseason and even the game that night in Milwaukee that he was having to that point. But the fact is, Pete Alonso does have special power. And, I was just talking to a high-ranking baseball executive for another team after Alonso agreed to this deal tonight and said, you could make a case that only Aaron Judge has the power tool to a greater extent in this game than Pete Alonso does. Now, we're not talking about all the other tools here, but that is a special thing. And what that home run did in Milwaukee was remind everybody, like, this is what Pete Alonso brings to the table. And that's not just an exciting thing for fans, but it's an important thing for having a deep lineup, a powerful lineup, protection for Juan Soto, winning baseball. So all those things are what the fans and the Mets themselves are going to be satisfied with here, I think. It worked really well for two other Boras clients, and Matt Chapman with the Giants and Blake Snell with the Giants, and then, of course, the long-term deal with the Dodgers. So there's a way to make your money if you have if this year goes well for him, and that's one of Scott Boras's plans that's worked out well for other players. So it does, unfortunately, for all of us and the Mets and Alonso, create another Pete Alonso walk year storyline. That's a little exhausting for everybody, but that's the reality here that we're dealing with. And the fact is, like, take 1 year at a time. If you're a Mets fan, and again, if you're the Mets themselves, you're a better team in 25, and you have a better chance of being a championship team in 25 now. So everybody can worry about the rest of that later on.